The COVID-19 pandemic may set back years of progress made in the global fight against malaria, especially in countries that have been hardest hit by the disease. That warning is detailed in an annual report by the World Health Organization that's out today. Bloomberg Quicktake reporter Jennifer Zabasaja has read the report and is here to walk us through some of its findings. Jen, it's good to see you on this Monday morning. What are experts saying about how the pandemic has affected malaria prevention efforts?
Yeah, good morning, Tim. I mean, really, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, this is an annual report from the WHO, as you mentioned, and they always detail sort of the global fight against malaria. But this year, they have a dedicated chapter on how COVID-19 is specifically affecting the fight against malaria. And there's a bit of concern because, they have said that there has been progress in the fight against malaria, but that progress had recently stalled even prior to the pandemic. And what they're concerned about is that there's going to be even more service disruptions to get people access to the quality care that they need to prevent malaria as a result of the pandemic. And they worry that it's going to affect the most vulnerable populations in the world.
So it sounds like this is because of an access of care, resources being stretched thin by this global pandemic. And that's why people are going to be in countries are going to be more affected by malaria, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the most concerning thing is that this is affecting countries that already have the weakest healthcare systems, right? And so if you take that, the poorest countries in the world, and also the fact that they are having to work on or combat the COVID-19 pandemic, in addition to the malaria disease at the height of transmission season for many of these countries, it's really a concern. And the WHO actually says that they expect, or they're warning that, we could see more malaria deaths in 2020 as an indirect result of COVID-19 than we could see COVID-19 deaths in Sub-Saharan Africa. And the people who are going to be most affected by that is going to be children, because children are already the most vulnerable group who are affected by malaria. They accounted for 67% of malaria deaths in 2019. So this could really be a concern for some of these African nations. And they're really sort of setting this warning to countries that, we need to continue to step up efforts to fight malaria while at the same time working on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Absolutely staggering. So what is the takeaway for world leaders from this WHO report? What is the message that they have for them?
The main thing that they're telling world leaders is to, exactly like what I was saying, don't lose sight of the malaria disease. It is a preventable disease, and there have been progress in the past 2 decades. There have been more access to things like bed nets for families to prevent, mosquitoes from coming in when they're sleeping. There's also been more access to treatments and to therapies. But the biggest issue is that, as the world is fighting against COVID-19, they don't want to then lose funding to get this quality access to care, as you mentioned, to those people who need it most. And one of the most concerning things that they also noted is that there's many people in these countries that are pushed to extreme poverty just to cover the cost of the therapies of malaria and transmission and disease. And so, what they really need is countries to step up and continue to fund and to support these countries that are hardest hit. And, Bill Gates has been very outspoken about public health related diseases and emergencies for years. And he actually said that this pandemic that we're currently in, it shows even more of a reason why preventing and eradicating a disease like malaria is so important, because it is preventable. There is an opportunity to make sure that people have access to care. And you want to make sure that that is something that countries can tackle when public health emergencies like a pandemic pop up. And so, this is really just a continued call to action for countries to not lose sight of one public health emergency while dealing with the current one that we're in.
Yeah, and absolutely a terrible reminder of the toll that this is taking around the world, not just when it comes to the economy and to people's lives, but on the healthcare systems that are already stretched thin. Bloomberg Quicktake reporter Jennifer Zabasaja, thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quicktake now for insight in an instant. The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quicktake now for insight in an instant.